there's not enough spots. Everyone can't play here with Tony Vitello's bunch. And look, Ryan, like to be completely realistic here, who do they actually have to land of the remaining big targets to keep Tennessee fans the overwhelming Tennessee fan base happy with where this class might end up? Who are the big ones that they have to at least land a couple of?
Yeah, I would say, and I think you look at the two spots where they've been heavy on a bunch of guys. I think you got to land like two of them: Amari Jefferson, Ryan Wingo, and Mike Matthews, and one, at least one of Kamarion Franklin and Williams Nwaneri. And I think it has to probably be kind of combining the two. I think you got to get one of the 5 stars in that boat. And where I will agree with you, and we've talked about it on this program before, like I don't worry about receiver recruiting. I don't worry about defensive line recruiting. But the offensive line, like that's what I worry about. And to me, there's less top guys that are in on at that position. And it seems like there's a lot of traction to Daniel Calhoun to Georgia this week. Obviously, the Anderson kid out in Texas is visiting Tennessee this week. He's got connections to Oklahoma. Like those are guys Tennessee are in on, but maybe not in the catbird seat. And your backup options there, I think, are a lot worse than what you're going to have at receiver and defensive line. So while you talk about the common fan, what's going to keep them off the ledge, I think it's probably more the defensive line and the receivers that I mentioned. But when I look at it, like I just think they're going to be fine at those 2 spots, and I think they're going to get enough of those guys. I'm more worried and have my eyes more set on the offensive line just because that's an area that they haven't been great recruiting. And as good as Glenn Ellerby has been on on-field coach, I would say he's probably been the weak spot of the staff on the recruiting trail. And as you've said before on this podcast, Darnell Wright's gone. The 5 stars you inherited are gone. You got to start bringing some of those guys in, and they really haven't done that at this point. They brought in some good guys, but they haven't recruited at an elite level. And there's some good prospects they're in on, but not enough elite guys to where those other positions you feel like you're just naturally going to get some, how the numbers work out. So that's kind of the spot that fans probably aren't paying quite as close attention to, but I'm going to have my eye on over the next 6 weeks.
Yeah, you look at like Gage Ginther. Yeah, it's great. He might rise up to 4-star, whatever, by the time the season ends. But it's like that's still a long-term project. Like all these guys you look at and you're like, all right. I mean, maybe, but those guys, generally speaking, I don't think you're going to be able to turn all of these 3-star offensive tackle and inside linemen into premier SEC talents. Like there is still a reason. Like Darnell played better with Ellerby than he did with Pruitt, and he developed better under Glenn Ellerby. But like, he still required he had that 5-star talent out of the gate here that was just there. It was evident, and you're able to work with that. Like Cooper's gone. I think there is actually another Mays brother though, isn't there? Isn't there one more?
I think he's way younger.
Okay.
Like probably in middle school right now.
Oh no! Well, we got a ways to go until the next the Mays brother comes up. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like when we talk about this year, like we still feel pretty okay by and large with where the line's going to be. It's not going to be devastating. I think the tackle spots might be potentially bad, but outside of that, next year, I mean, Campbell's gone. I don't think both tackle spots are probably going to be different. At least one right guard spot's different, and then the center's position's different. Like it's going to be a very different offensive line next year, and that's when you're like, okay, well, Ellerby's had 3 years, and they're going to have to dip a bunch in the portal again. Like I just don't see a way where they don't remake their offensive line in the portal, and I wonder if that's what they end up doing because they're not landing those bigger names. Is they're just going to have to swing big in the portal and utilize NIL in the portal with transfers. Like that's just where their transfer targets line up year over year. It's just they're not getting the high school 4 or 5 stars. They're going to have to get them in the portal and bank on them working out and being a plug and play option in Knoxville. That's where it seems like we're headed on that front. Do you agree?
Yeah, in the immediate future, like talking about next year, I think you're absolutely right. And especially at tackle. I think you look and there's, again, I've said this on here before, to me, and I don't want to undersell it, but to a lot, in the recruiting process, guards a lot of time to me are kind of a dime a dozen. Like you can find a lot of good interior offensive linemen, big strong dudes. Jamonte Spraggins to me is the great example of that. Super low time recruits, low rated 3-star, and he's been great for Tennessee. He's got that nasty streak in him, and he's a really good player. And they have some guys like that. Addison Nichols was a little bit of a bigger recruit, but a guy I think is going to be really good. Might even end up starting for him this year at guard.
Yeah,
definitely in 2 years is going to. So I think they probably have enough in the interior to piece it together. But to your point, like, it's hard to look at the young guys they have on this roster and be like, yeah, there's a lot of offensive tackles you feel good about who can step into that. Doesn't mean no one will develop, but it does seem like they're probably going to have to. It's trending towards that direction, like you said, of having to pick up some guys out of the portal.
And then Alec Ablin, I'm curious to see. He's got like he was thrown to the fire with some of these guys.
He was.
He's gonna have to start landing somebody. Like, you look at the tight end room going into next year. I mean, it's just Ethan Davis right now is all we're looking at here. So what he has to do on the campaign trail, on the recruiting trail this year, and then the transfer portal over the next year is going to be huge. There is a lot of pressure on Alec Ablin to build depth and get some big fish to replenish this tight end room.
Definitely. And, one thing I would say with him and obviously they lost Riddell to Georgia, and LeBlanc, the kid down at Baylor, to Ohio State. And, not to say those weren't tough losses, but I think it's easy to overlook, and this could come back and backfire. He could decommit. Did I say this? But Jonathan Eccles, when Alex Golesh left, all the buzz that I heard was that he was, if he wasn't going to decommit, he was going to go on a bunch of visits, and that was very much an open recruitment. To this point, it seems like he's still relatively steady at Tennessee. Obviously, he's still committed. So that's one that Alec Ablin won't get any credit for because he didn't land them. But if Jonathan Eccles ends up signing with Tennessee, I think Alec Ablin deserves it.